closed session meeting of the Port Hueneme Water Agency on March 21st, 2022. We're going to start the meeting at 3:02 p.m. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of Government Code Section 54953, Subdivision E, and recommendations of the Ventura County Health Officer issued September 21st, 2021, following social distancing recommendations. Madam Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Member Bouchard.
Here.
Member Perez.
Here.
Member Rollins.
Here.
Ex officio member Jacobson. Absent for the record. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Here.
Chair Debley.
Here.
And I want to confirm that I do have Member Perez.
Is my mic not working?
It wasn't then. Got it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any closed session public comments at this time?
I have not received any written comments for this session.
Great. Hearing none. We have one item for closed session today. Mr. City Attorney, could you please read the closed session item into the record?
Will do, Chair Debley. We have one closed session agenda item. It is conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation that is brought forth pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D2. And that is that there's significant exposure to litigation in the opinion of legal counsel based upon existing facts and circumstances. These facts and circumstances arise out of a three-party agreement between the City of Port Hueneme, the City of Oxnard, and Coegas Municipal Water District relating to water credits or pumping allocations, and there is one potential case.
Great, thank you.
Excuse me, this is Don Villafana. The city manager is not attending?
I do not see them.
I'm not sure if that was a question. He is not present right now. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Do we know whether or not he was invited?
I believe he was sent the link and the agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you. At this time, I'm not really sure, how we want to start the discussion here. I know we have Mr. Candy on the call. He might be able to provide some preemptive discussion to start us off. That work for you, Mr. Candy?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chair Debley, members of the board. This matter returns to you from last month. We got into a discussion regarding this issue over section 7.10 of the three-party water supply agreement involving Oxnard, PHWA, and the Coegas Municipal Water District. This section 7.10 requires PHWA to transfer on an annual basis, transfer to Oxnard 700 acre feet per year of either conservation credits or GMA allocation. And those terms are defined by older ordinances in effect with Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Authority. The current ordinances in effect don't allow for
The regular meeting, monthly meeting of the,
Excuse me.
oh, actually, do we want to start the recording, please?
Yeah, thank you. Curtis, if we can just get a thumbs up, and we have that. Okay, we're recording.
Great, thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Port Hueneme Water Agency. The time is now 4:01. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll for today?
Member Bouchard? You might be on mute. Member Bouchard?
Here.
Member Perez?
Here.
Member Rollins?
Here.
Ex officio member Jacobson?
Here.
Vice Chair Hernandez?
Here.
Chair Debley?
Here.
All present.
Great, thank you very much. Now's the time for public comment. Are there any general public comments for items that are not on the agenda for today?
I have no written public comments for general public comment.
Great, thank you. Hearing none. We did have our closed session this afternoon at 3 p.m. Mr. Spalding, could you please provide a closed session report?
Absolutely, Chair Debley. There were no reportable actions taken in closed session this afternoon.
Great, thank you. Now moving on to the agenda approval, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for today?
Is there going to be a comment from Mr. Villafana?
Chair Debley,
Yes.
Oh, Don, are you there?
Yes, this is Don Villafana. I would like the board to consider pushing the agreement with Hollister Brace to the next meeting, if that would be possible, so that there could be consideration by the respective boards.
So just to rephrase, we'd like to continue item number 5 until the next meeting, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to jump in real quickly. I apologize for the interruption. I'm going to be out of the country during PHWA's next board meeting. So I'm wondering if perhaps this could be moved to the May board meeting instead of the April board meeting.
I would have no problem with it. My understanding for the reason for the continuance of this item is mainly so that the member districts can discuss amongst themselves prior to any vote. I don't think there's an issue with continuing it past to the May meeting.
And move that we approve the agenda order continuing item 5 to the May meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by member Bouchard with a second by Vice Chair Hernandez. Is that correct?
Correct.
No, that was Director
Ms.
Perez.
Perez.
Oh, Perez for the second.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, member Bouchard,
Yes.
member Perez,
Yes.
member Rollins, member Rollins,
Yes.
ex officio member Jacobson, you may be on mute. Member Jacobson.
I abstain. I'm a non-voting member.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Chair Debley.
Yes. Thank you very much. Moving on, we have a presentation on the seismic analysis for the water tank and an update on the electrical issues. Mr. Villafana, I will hand it up to you.
All right, may I have share the screen privileges, please?
Yeah, you have it done.
Okay, thank you. Hold on a second. Hold on one moment, please. All right. Let me go here. All right. This is an update on the seismic analysis and some water, some electrical issues we had.
Director Villafonic, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you go into the slideshow so that it's a little bit bigger?
Okay, very good. Hold on a second. Okay, how's that?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, again, this is an update on the seismic analysis of the water tank and the electrical issues. The board may remember that we had Gannett Fleming do a facilities assessment report, and they identified a number of issues, items to be addressed as part of their inspection and assessment. And one of the high priorities was the seismic analysis of water tank. We came to the board and to approve a contract with Avila Structural Engineers to contract for this work. They have completed the analysis and came up with a number of recommendations. And one of the recommendations, but they identified that uplift was, the tank may experience uplifting, and that it was recommended that all the couplings have sufficient flexibility to avoid a failure of the couplings in the event of a seismic event. And so that's one of the things we'll be looking at. We'll be contracting, and I'll be coming back to the board to have a consultant work on that. Another one of the issues was the roof structure. There was a report in 2006 that pointed out there were no earthquake rods in the rafter bays of the tank. And then subsequently in 2014, it was reported that there were some earthquake report rods were there. So there was a conflict. There was a discrepancy. So this last week, we had a commercial dive company have divers go into the tank and do a thorough inspection of the tank and also do some repair work for a volume float valve that was broken, and also to double check the stiffening rods in the roof. And I expect to get their report and video next week, but it was reported to me, I was out there when the divers were there. It does appear that the earthquake rods were installed, and I'm going to be getting a report from them along with a video. Let's see. All right. Then we had an issue out at the plant on January 29th. We had the main breaker failed, and we had to go to bypass and go exclusively on Cayugas water. And that main breaker is a 480 volt, 1600 amp breaker. We called Edison out, and Edison determined it was not on their side of the breaker. And on Sunday, January 30th, Ken Lucci, our electrical consultant and electrical contractor, made a site visit. They couldn't reset the breaker, and it was determined that the main breaker needed to be replaced. Because this was an emergency, we issued 2 emergency purchase orders to Oilfield Electric, one in the amount of $25,000 to purchase a replacement breaker and $6,000 for the installation. Then on February 11th, we were able to resume United Water Conservation District water, because before that, because of the breaker, we had to go exclusively on Cayugas water. And what this brought up was something that I discussed with our electrical consultant. Currently, we have no way to put an emergency generator on the plant to run our equipment and pumps so that we can continue on United Water rather than just run exclusively on Cayugas. And I'm having the electrical consultant, Mr. Ken Lucci, provide me with a proposal for what it would cost to design to modify the electrical panel and provide for emergency hookup with a generator, and also the size of the generator needed to run our pumps so that we could stay on United Water. And once I get that and evaluate that, I'll be coming back to the board with a presentation on that and probably asking for authorization for a professional services agreement with Mr. Lucci's company to design that. Now, I wanted to bring you up to date on some of the things that are going on in the plant and open it up to any questions.
Do any members have questions for Director Villafana?
Don, am I reading, or maybe I misunderstood it. So Oilfield Electric did the installation, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we hired an engineering firm to come identify the problem and then just had Oilfield install it?
Yes, I've got a good working relationship with Mr. Lucci. I worked with him when he was at the county. He did a lot of heavy switchgear replacement at the HOA. And he's on contract with us. He did the arc flash study for the plant, and that's completed now. So I made a call to him and I asked him, hey, Ken, can you come out Sunday with a contractor and take a look at this, because we got to know what's going on. So
Sure.
He came out on a Sunday, and it was determined it was on our side and the breaker had failed and we needed to replace it. And at that time, I talked to the city manager. I let him know what was going on, and I got Oilfield Electric involved, found out, what a replacement breaker would run. Once we did that, we issued the emergency purchase orders for the purchase of the replacement breaker and the installation. Mr. Lucci did oversee the installation.
You referenced that we're going to be looking at emergency generation backup for the entire facility. Is that the goal?
I want to see what what it would cost for Mr. Lucci to design it, and also what his range of cost would be to purchase a generator. I want that option. I want to look and see, hey, is it a viable option? Because remember, if we go down and we have to go exclusively on Cayugas water, let's say there's a power outage and we have to go exclusively on Cayugas water, because gratefully, Cayugas comes through the Springfield Reservoir. It's gravity feed. We have some small generators which will allow us to monitor, continue to use our SCADA and continue to monitor residuals, chlorine and other chemical residuals, and actually to do some dosing of the water that's going out from Cayugas. However, that Cayugas water is nearly $1,500 an acre foot versus the $700 an acre foot from United. So I thought it was prudent to at least look at the potential cost for designing and construction or modification of our panel to accept an emergency generator.
I guess I just throw it out there for my opinion of, I think, right, we have a set of booster pumps there that we could, if the plant itself went down and we just wanted to pass through, while none of us, it's not the ideal situation to pass through United Water. That is potable water that can be passed through. And I would just be concerned about the ongoing cost of maintaining a generator of that size to keep the plant fully functional, the RO, the NF, all of those things of maintaining that for temporary outage situations that still would allow us to meet our goals of providing potable water, fire protection, and do those things. So I guess I'm just sharing, those are my thoughts as a board member, that it seems like an awfully big expense to try and run the plant, because we have a power outage or something, that if we still have water that's potable, meets state standards, our customers, and I know these are policy decisions, our customers would still have the means for public health and safety met without that. So that's just my thoughts.
I don't believe we can, we have to go through the main panel to run those booster pumps. So we'd have to hook up to the main panel. Otherwise, we'd have to put in a sub panel and isolate the booster pumps and hook up a direct line just to run the booster pumps. So we'd have to do something, because we can't run those booster pumps without power.
Okay.
Director Villafana, have we ever historically had to rent a generator to power the plant?
We
last
right now,
20
we
years?
don't have an ability to hook a generator up.
Okay.
We have some small generators that we use, and we have a bypass just to run our SCADA equipment, basically to power our UPS system, the uninterrupted power source, which allows us to run our SCADA system, and also our dosing equipment. So those are very small generators. They can't be tied into the booster pumps. We don't have the ability right now to power our booster pumps without tying into the main panel. So this is only, at this point, all I'm going to be doing is getting a cost estimate from Mr. Lucci to see what it would cost to design and his range of cost for what a generator would be. And of course, before we did anything like that, I'd have to get authorization from the board. So I would be coming back to the board and say, this is what I found out. And of course, let the board make that decision whether they want to expend the funds on that.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions from?
Yes.
Yes, I have a couple of comments and questions.
Ms. Hernandez, we'll go with you first, and then to Richard.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Debley. Just to follow up on Member Bouchard's comments regarding the generator and just everything that was discussed subsequent to that, I think it'd be a prudent measure to look into the costs of getting a generator. The chances of having a power outage these days, I think, is very likely, especially in the event of a major earthquake. It only takes one time for us to be in that situation, and for it to become a serious situation. So I don't know that frequency is a consideration here as much as it is the impact it would have if we weren't able to connect a generator to the treatment plant. I would also suggest that, Mr. Villafana, that you consider the state OES hazard mitigation grant program, which has been very good at funding local jurisdictions in the purchase and installation of generators. So I would direct you to take a look at that and try to find those grant funds for generators in the state coffers. So I think that might be a good option. Unfortunately, state grants or FEMA grants would not pay for maintenance. So I'd be curious to see what those maintenance costs are. I also had a question about the seismic rods, and who determined that those seismic rods didn't exist at one point? Was it the same company who was it Avala that did the inspection? I'm just curious.
No, there was conflicting information. There was an earlier report from 2006, I believe, where there was a dive inspection and they weren't there. Then a subsequent inspection said they were there. So there was a conflict there. And Mr. Avila just did a document review of all the previous inspections done and said, hey, there's a question whether these are really there or not. And one of the recommendations was to verify if they were there, and if they were there, the condition of those rods. So we routinely have, every several years, we will have the water tank inspected. And we hire a commercial dive company to go in there. And it's kind of an interesting process. They use a dry suit. They have to rinse it off with a chlorine water mix, and they go in there and they'll take a video and they'll inspect the tank. And there's other things they inspect. They inspect, if there's any rust or deterioration on the tank. And in this case, we also had a float that was broken that's on the exterior of the tank that shows the water level. So that needed to be repaired. So we took this opportunity to have a company come out and do that, repair it, and also do another inspection of the tank and to confirm if the earthquake stiffening rods were there. They said they were, and I'm expecting to get a video from the company and a full report next week.
Okay, I look forward to seeing that video. It does sound like an interesting process. Thank you.
Member Rollins, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, both. It seems prudent that we look into at least what the cost will be for an emergency generator. I guess my question on this incident was, how long were we down where we depended on the Colegas water solely, and how much money did that cost for the period of time that we were down before we could switch back to our normal water supply?
We were down from the 29th of January to the 10th of February. And so we were down, 11 days, was that 11 days? And so basically, we normally run at about $700 an acre foot, and about 20% of our demand is met by Callegas. But for those 11 days, 100% of our demand was met by Callegas. And again, the approximate acre foot cost is $1,500 an acre foot. So, it's a significant increase to run solely on Callegas.
Yeah, without knowing the amount of usage we had, it seems like that's thousands of dollars even for that short period of time.
Yes, it is. And in the operational report for the month of February, you'll get an idea on that, because you'll see how much water Callegas provided us for the month of February. And that'll be coming up later in the meeting.
So this emergency generator that you would be looking into purchasing, do you have any gut feeling as to how much that would cost?
Not at this time. I discussed it with Mr. Lucci, and I'm going to get a proposal from him on what it would cost to design the modification to the panel, and to provide a plan to create a quick coupler for a large emergency generator. Once I get that, I'm also going to ask him for a range of cost. And then that's when I'd come back to the board and seek your direction on this.
Yeah, I mean, besides providing that emergency assistance, it seems like if it comes up, it might pay for whatever this generator is going to cost us, depending on the final cost.
Correct.
Okay, that's my only questions.
Member Perez?
Yes, I just had a comment to follow up on the grant information. Don't forget about the recent water infrastructure grants that the state allocated to California.
Yes, I'm definitely looking into that, and we'll aggressively go after any grants to fund this project. I'll have someone look into that, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have one comment, and just a general comment. Being with our current status of the agency, are there any ARPA funds that are available to us as an agency, or is that only reserved at the city county level. I know some special districts receive funds, but I'm just curious if there might be another resource there for something like this, since it does involve that public health and safety and infrastructure component for, the community.
Don't know if Member Rollins wants to speak on his information, but I know at least for Port Hueneme that it's already been assigned, and I don't know that there is anything left over in regards to that.
Yeah, I guess I just reconfirm we've already allocated the existing money that was set aside for the city of Port Hueneme. I know there may be still some county funds, but it would have to be something that would be mutually needed not only by the city of Port Hueneme, but other agencies. And so I'm not sure whether it would qualify or not.
Great, thank you for that.
For your information, I meet monthly with the other public works directors for the other 9 cities and also the county. And there are infrastructure funds that have been approved in Washington. And I'm working with the other directors and seeing how they are trying to go after some funds, because I want to keep my thumb on that so that we can make sure that Port Hueneme applies in a timely manner and tries to get some additional funds wherever possible. And some of those funds are supposedly going to be earmarked for water infrastructure. So I'm also going to be aggressively going after those too.
Great, thank you. That sounds good.
If I could just really quickly, I just hearing the follow-up, I want to make sure that maybe the rest of the board heard me in saying that I wasn't supportive of a generator. That wasn't my intent. My intent was these things can get very expensive, tough to maintain. And so that's why I asked the question about the booster pumps. If we can scale it down to what we're looking at to be able to continue to serve public health and safety needs during an outage, rather than trying to run the RO and NF facilities and the amount of power generation that it takes to run the entire thing. I think, Don, if I'm not mistaken, the booster pumps themselves would allow us to continue to deliver water, OH water, through the pipeline under a bypass situation where we just weren't treating it, but it could still be delivered to meet public health and safety needs in a time of, in that circumstance.
Yes, if we were going to just isolate the booster pumps, we would still have to have the breakers for the booster pumps. Of course, You've got the main breaker, which controls the whole panel. Then you have other breakers on the panel, and you'd have a breaker for the booster pumps. So what we would have to do is bypass the main breaker and somehow tie into just those specific breakers. I don't know how much that would save on the size of the generator, or really the cost to actually design and install a quick coupler for, rather than the whole plant that goes to the main breaker. We'd have to isolate those two and have a connection to those two. So I'd have to discuss that with Mr. Lucci, but I will bring up the subject with him.
I appreciate it. I'd just like to see that option in the overall if that's where we're going. So I didn't want the board to think that I wasn't in favor of us having the emergency generation capability, but just looking at it from a financial perspective and necessity to run the whole plant all the time.
Great. Thank you for those comments. We'll move on to the consent agenda for today. We have 2 items. We have approved the minutes from the Water Agency regular meeting on February 22nd, and then receive and file the cash disbursement report for February 9th, 2022 through March 14th, 2022. May I have a motion and second to approve our consent calendar?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Hernandez and a second by Member Rollins. Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Member Rollins,
Yes.
Member Bouchard,
Yes.
Member Perez, Chair Dudley,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We do not have any scheduled public hearings for today, so moving on to business items. We have the Director Villafana, if you could provide us the Brackish Water Reclamation operational report.
Good afternoon again. This is the operational report for the month of February. And the plant didn't operate for the first 10 days of February, and that was due to the breaker outage as we discussed previously. And that the Port Hueneme Water Agency demand for the month of February was 3.25 million gallons per day. And there was a typographical error I did not catch. That was more than January 2022. Our demand in January was 3.05 million gallons per day. Last February 2021, our demand was 3.18 million gallons per day. The silt density index, which is the measure of the silt, and also it was below the threshold, so we were able to operate the membranes during that period of time. And during this period, United Water supplied 51.7% and Callegas 48.3%. And you can see that percentage is high because the first 10 days of February, we were solely on the Callegas water. So that's why there was the big difference this year, or that month, this last month. And, you know, we are on an annual allocation. And so far, our sustainable groundwater management allocation is 3,657 acre feet per year. And currently, we've used approximately 395 acre feet of United Water. And I just wanted to also bring up that we don't have, you know, the capacity. We use approximately 150 to 300 acre feet a year less of United Water. So we really don't have a lot of water that would be available to transfer to anybody. And that goes back to the issue in the closed session. So for this month, we had approximately 80% of the water from well, when we have 1,480 acre feet allocated from Callegas. So, you know, we have not used anywhere near what our allocation is for that. We've owned, even with the 10 days in February, it was 12.4% of our allocation. And so we can, and I also continue to monitor the drought issue. And I will be coming back. PHWA doesn't enforce restrictions on the users. The individual agencies that make up PHWA do that. Currently, the city is at a level 1. And I sent out to the city council weeks ago kind of a history of the water ordinance that was done a number of years ago. We were at a level 2 then, and we dropped back after a very wet year in 2017 to a level 1 with a series of restrictions. I will probably be coming back to the city and asking the city council to adopt by resolution, moving the city back to a level 2 drought condition. And I've talked to Mr. Pete Martinez, and he'll be working with the board. And I know he's doing a lot of conservation, education and awareness, but we are going to be asking for more reduction of water. We're going to be placing restrictions on times of watering and those type of things. So just to give this board an update, I will be going to the city council probably in April or early May to do that. Are there any questions?
I apologize for that. I was muted. Director Bouchard or Member Bouchard, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just noticed Dave Birch isn't here. Is he still on staff with PHWA?
No, Mr. Birch is no longer with the city.
Oh, okay. Are you guys, are we looking to fill that role, or is it?
Right now, I've brought on a consultant, Milner Villa, to provide service. Mike Oakley, who's retired from the city of Ventura, and he will be here 3 days a week with the city to assist me. So that's our interim position right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on the agenda, item 5 has been continued. Item 6, which is AB 361, related to remote meeting compliance. We have renewal and reconsideration of the remote meetings pursuant to Government Code Section 54953, subsection E. We have Mr. Spalding to provide a report on the current status.
Thank you, Chair Debley and honorable board members. Let me pull up my information real quick. All right, so this should start feeling a little bit old hat to everybody by this point in time. Essentially, AB 361 allows local agencies, including joint powers authorities such as PHWA, to continue holding remote meetings due to the COVID-19 virus. And it requires the agency every 30 days to make one of 2 findings in order to continue going remote. The first finding that's available for the PHWA is the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of its members to meet safely in person. And the second is state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. At this point in time, the March 4th, 2020 state of emergency issued by Governor Newsom remains in effect. In addition, the Ventura County Public Health Officer has not rescinded his September 21st, 2021 letter recommending social distancing. In fact, the most recent guidance from the Ventura County Public Health Officer is that while masks are not required, appropriate safety measures as well as wearing masks is still recommended. With respect to my staff report, giving the status of infections throughout Ventura County, obviously the situation has changed a little bit. At the time of this staff report, there were 363 new COVID-19 cases with a 7-day case rate of 9.3 for 100,000 in the county. There were 32 persons hospitalized with 8 persons in the ICU. Currently, the 7-day average case rate has fallen to 5.4, and the number of new cases has jumped up a little bit to 401. Given these facts, it looks like everything is trending down as far as COVID-19 infection. And in addition, let me see if I can find it. It's the number of, so we have 401 new cases. We have 29 persons currently hospitalized and 5 currently in the ICU. So as we can see, the case rate is trending down to below the numbers that Ventura County Public Health had initially selected, which was 7 per 100,000 that it would use as the benchmark for lifting the mandates. That being said, it appears the rate of the number of infections is a little bit higher than at the time that I wrote the staff report, despite the case rate dropping, and the number of ICU patients is significantly lowered, approximately by half. So that being said, it's incumbent upon the board to decide whether or not to continue to meet remote or to choose to meet in person. If the board chooses to meet remote, it would be incumbent on this board to make one of the following findings: that the state of emergency continues to impact the ability of the members to meet safely, or that local health officials or local officials in general are recommending social distancing measures. Please let me know if you have any questions.
I don't see any hands raised. Do any members have questions for Mr. Spalding? If not, do we have a motion on this?
A motion that we continue remote meetings.
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please take a roll call vote?
We have a motion by Vice Chair Hernandez and a second by Member Perez.
Can I speak to the motion really quick?
Member Bouchard? Yes.
I'm gonna abstain for the vote, and I want to qualify to completely support and understand where everybody's at, and understand if the rest of the board is more comfortable in that position. I'm at the point for myself, watching my students, my children back in school, being able to do it safely. As much as I love these remote meetings because it's easier on my schedule, it is done under an executive order from the governor allowing us to do it this way. And I think there has been some loss of public participation and ability to participate. So I'm just at a point that I really want us to get back as public officials to having our meetings in person that the public's comfortable with and familiar with, but I certainly respect the rest of this board, and my vote in no way is not to abstain from it. In no way should reflect anything other than that's where I'm at with it today. And
just as the person who made the motion, I suppose I should have stated clearly for the public's benefit and for the board's benefit, the reason I made the motion, and I just continue to feel that we need to exercise safety in the environment. That's a very fluid situation. And as much as we're all anxious to get back and take off those masks, I don't feel that our city council chambers allows for the social distancing and the safeguards that are necessary, at least in my mind, for me and the situations I have with my family. So.
And Chair, if I may, not to influence the vote one way or another, I had recently had a conversation with Scott Madelon earlier today. He's the city's PIO, Public Information Officer, and he has a COVID presentation that's scheduled for tonight at the city council meeting when the city council undertakes this vote. One of the things that we were discussing was the fact that the COVID infections are significantly decreasing, and they're starting to fit the county guidelines before they lifted their mask requirement. However, of concern is the fact that I believe there are now 2 variants that are moving through China as well as the United Kingdom and whatnot. And typically what we've seen in the United States has been we're approximately 3 weeks behind the rest of the world. So the only thing that might be taken into consideration is that if we do go in person as of April, there's potentially a possibility of being back in remote meetings by May. And so given the fluid nature of this situation, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen in the future, but the board should certainly consider it.
Thank you for that.
And thank you both members Bouchard and Hernandez for your perspective on it. I agree wholeheartedly with both of you. So, Madam Clerk, I guess we still need a roll call on this?
Yes. So we have a motion on the table to continue with remote meetings with a motion by Vice Chair Hernandez and a second by Member Perez. Vice Chair Hernandez?
Yes.
Member Perez?
Yes.
Member Rollins?
Yes.
Chair Dudley?
Yes.
Member Bouchard, I believe you said if you were going to abstain, right?
I'll abstain. Thank you.
We have 4 yes and 1 abstention.
Great, thank you. At this time, it's time for board member comments, reports, and requests for future agenda items. Do we have any members that have updates on reports or comments?
Yes, I'll just provide a very brief update. Following peripherally the adjudication proceedings that have been filed in the Oxnard-Hueneme basins. There's thankfully this agency is not expending a bunch of money on what is venue setting issues that are occurring. The case was originally assigned to Judge Anderley out of Santa Barbara by Judicial Council, who is also overseeing the Las Posas adjudication, which is about 3.5 years in. They thought, given the connectivity to the OH or the White Oxnard Pleasant Valley basins, he would be the right guy to hear it. Same players. Some folks disagreed and didn't want it there. They were successful. I mean, they've spent a lot of money, these folks, the different folks, trying to move the venue. But basically, they were successful in having Judge Anderley removed from the case under a potential conflict. He happens to be the trustee for a family condominium that is in your lovely city of Port Hueneme, that somehow he would have a conflict because he would have an overlying water right. So he was removed. They then, as deemed by the courts, inappropriately reassigned it to another judge in Santa Barbara, which I guess once it's supposed to leave a venue or that judge gets disqualified, it's supposed to leave that venue. They reassigned it to another Santa Barbara judge. They went back, appealed that decision. So it has been removed from Santa Barbara. We believe the venue is going to end up being LA, where it will get assigned by Judicial Council. That was on the day before that was made. There was supposed to be a initial settlement conference, or Mr. Spalding could probably provide the correct term I'm looking for. I think one of the first things they do is initial settlement conferences, but at any rate, so the process is not moving swiftly by any means at this point, but once it gets assigned, we'll probably start hearing more and have to be more actively engaged.
Great,
That's
thank you,
all.
Member Bouchard. Are there any other board members that have any comments? I do have one, just an observation. I recognize that we don't directly have consumers in PHWA, but there is the legislation that was passed in 2018 related to water usage and consumption. And I just wanted to let the other members know that Assembly Bill 1434 was amended in January, that speaks to decreasing that quantity significantly. So instead of beginning in 2025 being 55, or excuse me, 2023, the standard being 55, and then it goes down over the next couple of years, it actually drops it into 47 gallons per day per capita, and then in 2030 dropping to 42 gallons per day per capita. So, that is something that obviously we should be looking at, just as we move forward with the agency. And I just wanted to let you guys know.
If I could make, you brought up, speaking of assembly bills, another issue that might be of interest to your city, and I'll just leave it out there. The California Special Districts Association's legislative advocacy group has been putting out a lot of information regarding a bill that or not a bill, it's going to be a constitutional amendment that they're trying to get. The petition's been filed at the state, and now they're collecting signatures for what is being called the Taxpayer Protection Act and Government Accountability Act. And a lot of both cities, counties, special districts are opposing the act because it's much like Prop 218. We just don't know what the heck it's intended to address, and could create its own issues for all of us that are in the water, sewer, trash, rate setting, fee setting, tax issues. I would encourage you to take a look at it and decide for yourselves, but it's a pretty broad-based movement that basically any tax your city may try to put out, any fee can only be for a predetermined amount of time. You have to continually justify it. It's a pretty onerous program if it gets successful to get on the ballot, and it will be done as a constitutional initiative. And the folks that we've had look at it have no idea how it's going to impact Prop 218 because it's at odds with it at times and in favor. So we could all spend a lot of money just on attorneys trying to figure it out. So anyhow.
Great, thank you for that.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments, do any members have requests for future agenda items? Hearing none, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 4:51 p.m. Thank you all for participating today and have a wonderful afternoon/evening.